we have three panelists here with us, excellent panelists, I might add. Lisa Ascolese, also known as the inventress. We have Josh Scharf, and then Michael Zahabian. So I'll turn over the floor to each of them for about 1 or 2 minutes each and let them tell you about themselves, their experiences, their products. They can do themselves much better justice than I could ever do to them. So let's start with Lisa and then Josh and Michael, 1 to 2 minutes each, and then we'll dive right into the topics from there.
So you put the pressure right on me. Thanks a lot, James. Thank you very much. No, hi, everybody. Good morning. It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show. This is exciting. So my name is Lisa Ascolese, yes, known as the inventress. I invent products. I've been inventing since I'm a little girl, 9 years old, obviously not knowing they were inventions, just modifying things as I went along. So got the inventing bug, fast forward many years later, knowing that this is what I do. This is what I do. This is in my heart. I invent, I develop, I create products daily. I call them mental inventions. My business is called Inventing A to Z, where I help my clients invent products from concept to fruition. What I say is the right way, because we know there's a right way and there's a wrong way of doing things. All of us here definitely know that. So what I do is help people with everything from manufacturing, sourcing, everything, all of the in-betweens, and marketing in the end. So I've been bringing products to QVC, HSN, and Shop HQ for the last 25 years. Well, QVC for 25 years, HSN for the same. As you know, Shop HQ has been around for a little bit shorter time. QVC and HSN are the top shopping networks in the world. And of course, everybody wants to get there, but there are steps to get there, including manufacturing, developing products, and prototyping. So those are all of the things that I do to help people as I said, step by step, importantly, the right way. I provide classes, inventing classes monthly to anybody who has inventions or are entrepreneurs, much like you, David, to give them information before they jump into the manufacturing process, because there's a lot to know before you go there. So again, Inventing A to Z, Lisa Ascolese, the inventress. My website is inventingatoz.com. My information is, my email is info@inventingatoz.com. Love to help people succeed.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
That's my
awesome.
spiel.
And Josh.
Sticking with it.
Tough act to follow over there, Lisa. I'm Josh Scharf. I've been doing this a long time. I'm old, but I'm an industrial designer and an architect by training. Actually, I think Lisa and I have something in common. We're both from Brooklyn, right? Are you from Brooklyn? Yep, that's it. So I'm not there anymore, but I am originally from Brooklyn. And for decades, I was consulting for Fortune 100s, developing everything for them, products, which brought me to Asia, initially to Korea, Japan, and about 35 years ago to mainland China. And have been developing products there. About 15 years ago, I started developing products for my own business, and we've done very, very well. It's the usual inventor route of finding a need and coming up with a solution. My real area of expertise is I know manufacturing inside out. I've been to every possible kind of factory manufacturing between my clients and my own business. I have many friends in China who I miss because nobody's gone to China in the last 2 or so years. I started expanding. I'm manufacturing in other places because of the issue with China at this point. When it comes to manufacturing, I've manufactured everything from sewn goods to metal to plastic to you name it. And I think my relationship with Gearhart Law started at least 15 years ago, or maybe earlier than that. And I think the principal reason for it is that they're only 10 minutes away. So that was a good reason. But any questions, and certainly in the course of the conversation, they'll probably arise. And I do have information about China and other places. So move ahead.
Thanks, Josh. And certainly last but not least, Mike.
Yes, my name is Michael Zahavian. I originally from Iran. I live in New Jersey for the last 40 years. I started my business in the US after university, opening a jewelry retail shop. And then I went into wholesale. And then I went to China to manufacture jewelry about, I would say, 20 years ago. And I started selling jewelry to many jewelers in the US. After 2008, when everything went bad, obviously nobody was purchasing jewelry anymore. So I decided to look for other opportunities. So the best opportunities that I could find that time was real estate. And the best location was Las Vegas. So I went to Las Vegas and I purchased many homes at very low prices, and I rented them out. And then, as we know, the real estate market bounced back, and quickly I sold everything. And then I had this idea about wearing shoes in a different way that it always have been worn. And the fact that I was traveling a lot, I saw people at the airport, at the different locations, they always struggle putting the shoes on, or they wear it loose, or they didn't wear it properly. So, and elderly people who had a hard time to bend down, among other people. So I sold all my houses, and I had this idea, and I wanted to pursue my shoe adventure. So I started trying to make prototypes in the US, and I hit many roadblocks. And I found that even if I wanted to make something here, they were gonna send it to China to do it and come back. And each time it's gonna take a few months. So then I decided I'm a little bit familiar with China. So I took a plane ticket and I just went. And I started looking for different companies to be able to make the function that I wanted to put in the shoes. And to make the long story short, it took me 4 years of making different samples and traveling to few different countries. And eventually I find out that the best place to do it still is in China, and the easiest way and the fastest way and the cheapest way. So after 4 years and going through so many things, good and bad, I was able to finally complete my product. And I brought it to market just about over 2 years ago. So I made a warehouse in China. I hired many employees. I set up a factory. And as soon as I started my business, COVID hit. So it was a little bit unfortunate, but I've been doing well. The company has been profitable. We're helping a lot of people. If anybody wants to check out what it is, the name of the product is Ziba. So they can find it at zibashoes.com. And basically what it does is when you want to put your foot into the shoe, you don't need to bend down. You don't need to open the laces or close it. And within a second, you could put both of your feet in the shoe, and it's extremely comfortable. And I've been finding out, which wasn't my intention, to be honest with you, that it's helping hundreds of thousands of people because there are different issues that they couldn't solve. So basically, right now, this is what my business is Ziba Shoes.
Thanks, Mike. And,
Sure.
I think, thank you to Lisa and Josh. I mean, those are all, it's really great background, and it's really interesting to hear all of the different experiences that each of you have. And I think, to just start off, perhaps, a bit more broadly, Mike, you mentioned that it took 4 years, right,
Yes.
in order to, find what you need. And, many times when I'm speaking to, a client or someone who is thinking that, they want to, get something made overseas, they may not have the full frame of reference in terms of, what's really required. So, perhaps maybe the first thing we can just speak on, and each of you individually, and what is it that you really need to look for and find in terms of being successful and finding the right factory and the right people. Many people may be surprised to find out that not every factory is going to be capable of producing everything that you need, and they may need to source things from elsewhere, right? And so describe a bit about what that process is, how you go about selecting a factory, and the benefits and the pitfalls. And maybe Mike, we can start with you, and then we can jump.
Sure.
Lisa and Josh can feel free to jump in as well.
Yes. The first of all, I had to develop the function of the shoe. That was the first thing before I make the shoe and put a function in it. So making that thing, I had to go to literally hundreds of factories in able to get it right. And many of them, because I had to keep changing it, gave up. So finally, I came up with an idea that worked, and I went to a sandal company, because putting it in a sandal, it's much easier than in the shoe. So that company also worked with me about a year, and after a year, they gave up. And then, because I didn't want to go factory to factory and show them what my function is before I have the patent, I decided not to do it in China, because in China, as you guys all know, they copy everything they see. So I traveled to other countries, like I went to Thailand and Vietnam and some other countries, and they tried for a while and they also gave up. So from what I've seen, even for example, when I went to Thailand and I wanted to make a mold for the outsole of the company, they had to send it to China to do it, which also took a few months back and forth. So basically, at the end, I decided, with my experience, I don't know how other people dealt with this, China would be the best place for me to do this. And since I didn't want to waste any time, I picked 10 companies and I told my idea to all 10 companies, and they made samples. But while they were making it, 9 of them gave up. And only 1 of them decided to continue, because maybe they were kind of more desperate than others. But after making prototypes for 1 whole year, basically every single day, week with a new one, at the end, it came to a point that they were ready to throw me out, basically, out of the factory. And the partners in Chinese, they were fighting. And I knew if I don't do something right there and then, I'll be out of this one too. So I decided, wherever we were, I decided that we should go ahead and start manufacturing. So at that time, they start changing and I started manufacturing, and the product went into market and it was very well received. So basically what I'm trying to say, I tried different countries, but it seemed China was the best option for
you and your product, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had to kind of speed date over there a little bit too, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Lisa?
I love the speed dating thing. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much again, David, for having the show. This is so good. So good. So necessary for inventors to hear, because the first thing I hear as being commissioned as their tutor, their mentor, the person who's managing all of the manufacturing is, how long is it going to take before anything is even put into place? So inventors don't necessarily understand until they're in it that everything takes time. What I do in my business is try to prepare my clients as best I can. Engineering something, getting it organized, getting graphics done, getting specs taken care of, and all of the information necessary to put a full product together, because it's going to take time. At times, and I want to piggyback what you both said, Michael and Josh, that you can get 15 prototypes before it's right, before it's exact. You know, and they do go to many different factories, and they have to buy merchandise sometimes from other manufacturers. We talked about this yesterday, James. You know, many inventors think that, you know, hello, China, guess what I need? I need a hair product done, right? I need a bow for my hair. Let me just call China, and China makes it. Well, and even if when I source different manufacturing companies, and I have a wonderful crew of folks who work for me, everything is not made in one factory. It's not like they have in their back room everything that you want. You want something that's made of plastic, and it could have some fabric associated with it. The inventor sometimes thinks that that one manufacturer has the plastic parts, they have the fabric parts, and that's not the case. They then have to shop for all of the materials that are necessary to put all of these components together and see if it actually even works and functions. Okay, so then there's a product, they're shipping prototyping back and forth, and that can happen 10, 15 times, and it's expensive. So because this is your shipping, whether it's they ship DHL or FedEx or whatever it is, and you may not get the thing that you have in your head. So what I have to reiterate to all of you inventors listening is, be as specific as you possibly can when you are creating a product. I have engineers, I have graphic artists, I have web designers, I have everything in place to help build and draft whatever that product prototype is prior to sending it to a manufacturer. And communicating expeditiously, quick. If a manufacturer asks me for something, the client must respond immediately. Reasons? Number one, prices go up. Have you ever seen, you guys know, a manufacturer will say to you, this price will stay in place between 5 and 15 days. That's it. After 15 days, the prices can go up, they can go down, but usually they go up. So, and being at the manufacturer, as you said, Michael or Josh, if everybody could do that, that would be amazing, but everybody can't. And even if you are there working with the manufacturer, they may not necessarily still know what you're talking about. And the functionality of the product still may not work. So, and not to be a Debbie Downer, but I mean, just being involved and understanding what it is you want before you start the manufacturing process. It's not cheap, and it doesn't happen overnight. So my thing is preparation, prep. And even when you are, sometimes it takes longer because like things like COVID do happen.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Thank you for that, because I'm glad for everybody to listen to this. I see some of my clients on here too, and I'm glad that they're hearing from other people, from other inventors, how this process could possibly go. Because sometimes you feel like you're in it by yourself, and it's happening. It's taking so long just for you, but that's not the case. Don't put your house. Don't refinance your mortgage in order to manufacture a product. That's the other thing. Do not,
unless they're paying you the fee.
Yes.
What's that?
Unless they're paying you the fee, right?
I say never. Don't ever.
Don't ever. It's true.
Your home. Make sure you have those extra funds and know what you want to do. Know what your end goal is too when you're manufacturing a product.
Right.
Yeah.
So I answered a lot of questions that weren't even asked.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's very sage advice, and I think both Lisa and Michael have touched on that. There's a lot more work, and it takes a lot longer than you think it's going to. And Josh, I'm sure you have some thoughts on all of this as well.
I do.
You're never a guy short on words.
Believe it. I'm kind of the hybrid. I didn't move to China, but I was there 3 or 4 times a year, from anywhere between two weeks to a month. And I'm a great believer in the fast track method of developing products. You have to come prepared, and you have to know your product. You have to know exactly what the components are, how it's going to be manufactured, what the major part is. And to Lisa's point, and I think Michael's point as well, a factory does not have everything under its roof. What it does is it could produce the primary part or the principal part of a product, but then source out the rest of it from other component manufacturers. and then do the assembly. So the way I would always work with factories over decades is show them the concept, start working on the product, and come with a complete set of documents. The documents specify the size, dimensions, the look, the feel of the product, as well as the componentry involved. And does everybody see me? Yeah. So, and the componentry involved. And then have the conversation with the factory in China. That means going to the conference room with the impossibly big table and having all the engineers sitting around the table and everybody's arguing in Chinese. And the frame of reference for Chinese manufacturers is not necessarily Western. An example of that is that I was working for a client of mine who was in the auto supply business, component system business, and we brought a product that had to do with a battery recharger that was about this big, right? And nicely designed and everything. And it was stripped down. It did what it was supposed to. It was handed over to the factory engineers. I showed up 2 weeks later because I'm there in China, and I come back 2 weeks later, and all of a sudden this thing that was like that, all of a sudden became this enormous thing with an ozone cleaner, with a this, with a that. They just kept on adding more crap onto the product, and cost, and of course size, and it looked like hell. It looked like 1960s aesthetic. And you know, the engineer and his helper, because it needed two of them to carry this damn thing into the conference room, bring this in, and I'm looking at my drawings and I'm looking at this product, and I said, what the hell is that? So the engineer said to me, I know the American market very well. This is the best for the American market. And, you know, of course, we got into a bit of a tussle over that. How do you know the American market? I watch American TV. Okay, well, there you go. So he saw Pamela Anderson a few times in a bathing suit, and he was the expert on all that. So the fact of the matter is you can't, bringing things to a factory and expecting a Chinese factory to define your product is absolutely wrong. You have to come prepared. You have to have documents. You have to have prototypes. You have everything. And I'll show one example. And you know, the guys at Gearhart know this product. This is the stupidest product I ever invented. And on day one, I'm about to go off to China. I'm reaching underneath my kitchen cabinet where the sink is, sink base, and it's wet. And it's a relatively new kitchen. And I realized that there's a leak from the P-trap. I said, if it can happen to me, I was very careful about these things. It can happen to anybody. So on the airplane between, you know, Newark International and Hong Kong, where I would fly into, I developed a product that was a low water leak alarm. And, you know, there was certain criteria. And this thing had, when water touches these two things on the bottom, it would start to alert. The following day, I went into mainland China, sat down with the factory with the drawings off my computer, and we started defining it. Within a week and a half, this product was pretty much doped out and ready for production. So while some things take a lot of time, if you know the criteria and you come prepared, you know exactly, you've already gone through the options and designed the product and know what kind of a factory you want and you need, it does shorten the time, it shortens the expense. And this product also had, you know, larger brothers, you know, larger products where it's a B2B product as well as a B2C. So you have to be able to know your product exceedingly well. If you don't know your product, you have no business manufacturing, and you shouldn't attempt it. Now, just a word about China. I've been working in China. I have been 34, 35 years. I moved my factories, my manufacturing out of China right after COVID hit. And I moved them and I was looking internationally. I looked in the United States because it's the patriotic thing to do, but you couldn't get anything manufactured in the United States for love nor money. And to the point, I think that Lisa made, the componentry still came from China, or Michael made, somebody made, the components still came from China. It didn't make a difference. So I went to Poland, I went to Turkey. I even talked to somebody in Israel with, in the Palestinian territories to manufacture there. But it was no go because all the componentries were still coming from China. The little electronic parts, the battery. And I ended up in a factory in Vietnam, in North Vietnam, and they've been terrific. And since then, I've learned that a lot of my friends who have factories in China, these are mainland Chinese, have opened up factories in other countries. A lot of time, for many reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the political issues going on in China now. It's become very difficult for them. Some factories have electricity for only 2 or 3 days a week, and they can't produce. The ports are all clogged with COVID. Vietnam has been pretty clear, and there's a little bit of a legacy there because after about the time of the Olympics, the Chinese Olympics, China decided to show how magnanimous they were to the workers. They passed a law that if a factory owner was to leave a factory, close a factory, they would have to provide every worker with 2 years worth of salary, which was a ridiculous thing. And a lot of these owners were either Taiwanese or Hong Kongese. So on day 2 or 3 after this law was passed, these guys would go to lunch, take their cars, and never come back to the factory. And they proceeded to open up factories in Laos, in Cambodia, and Thailand, and Vietnam. And the reason, and the kind of factories that they opened there were really very much cut and sew. So it's for shoes, for clothing, because it's a very easy manufacturing process to transfer. The skill level is not incredibly high. The machinery is accessible and inexpensive. You didn't need the high-tech stuff. You didn't need the diodes or anything like that. It's just fabric, material, some die cutting, some simple molding, and cut and sew. So depending on what your product is, there's a range of countries to go to that would make it much more accessible. And the development cycle, although Michael had a very specific function, but for the most part, cut and sew, it's like asking grandma to sew something for you. It's a relatively simple process. So you have to be sensitive to what the product is, and you have to know your product before you even consider manufacturing. That's it.
No, that's great. And you really, you're a mind reader too, because you kind of touched on my next.
I know I am.
Yeah.
I know. Well, why?
So you touched on my next question, which was, today's, conversation isn't, and we've spoken a lot about China so far, isn't China manufacturing, but it's overseas manufacturing. And what are the alternatives? And you've mentioned now, Vietnam, Laos, you were even talking about Poland and potentially Israel. Michael said that he, looked in a number of places, and I know Lisa currently does all of hers, out of India. And so maybe Lisa, maybe you can talk a little bit about India, and then Mike, you can describe a little bit more about, some of the other opportunities and how they're similar to China and how they're different, and why you should maybe consider, somewhere else other than China. Because like I said before, the one question I always kind of field is they say, well, I'm going to get it made over in China. Do you know anyone? And say, oh, well, did you think of anywhere else? And no, doesn't everyone get everything made in China, right? And so Lisa, maybe you can talk a little bit about India, and we can talk about those options,
So yeah, so we're mentally creatures of habit. Everybody, I mean, this is what we've been doing for many centuries. We've been manufacturing everything from in China and Japan and all of those places where people always make fun of, you know, yeah, it's made in China, I don't want it, all that stuff. And everybody's making everything in China. So I do a lot of my manufacturing in China, in India. And, you know, of course, in the beginning, I was a little skeptical about the quality, et cetera, just like any place else. But I am fortunate enough to work with a team of people who have great QA. And believe me, everything is not quality assurance, guys. Everything is not perfect always. Um, I do get a lot of prototyping back and forth. In the beginning, I was getting some, you know, stitching that wasn't perfect. But that's a communication effort. You have to communicate back and forth, and there's a lot of patience to be had, no matter whether you're manufacturing in China or India. So many of my manufacturers in India still have to source, again, products, plastics, because they're the mecca of, you know, great plastic manufacturing. So when it comes to a dance, in providing one product that could be, Josh, I believe you said that, bringing everything into one manufacturer, it's still, many products are still made in China and brought to different parts of the world. So I reach out with my team and I go to different parts of the world to find out where else we can get products made, because China is not the only, it's not the only place. Texas, you know, has some great manufacturing, by the way. Great manufacturers, depending upon what it is you're looking for, some materials. North Carolina, if you're not doing, you know, mass quantities. So there are other places to look at. Ultimately, overseas is the best place. But again, my manufacturing is most of it now since the beginning of 2021, once the pandemic hit, was moved over to India. And I've been very, very successful. Some minor situations with some packaging issues and lack of understanding when it comes to worrying on packaging and all of those things, but minor. But to let you, all of you know, again, nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. When you don't have hands-on, when you're not fortunate enough to sit with a manufacturer and watch what they're doing every step of the way, unfortunately, it's not always going to be perfect. In fact, there's some loss, meaning 100% of your inventory is not always going to be perfect. Okay, so you have to understand that now too. I have a client who literally, my manufacturer is actually calling me from India right now because I had an issue last night. One of the packages they received was not perfect. And I'll tell you exactly what it is. The tape on the package was not perfect. It came yellowed. All right. I'm going to give you a minor example. It's a clear circular piece of tape. You all know what I'm talking about, right? You seal an envelope and it's a circle, a piece of tape. All of the pieces that she received, the tape was yellow. Thank God it's the only piece of the whole puzzle that was not perfectly done. We're going now going through all of the inventory, but everything is not perfect. That can be fixed. So word to the wise, everybody here who's manufacturing, when you receive a product back, number one, QC it immediately, check it out as soon as you get it back. If it's a packaging, you have to repackage something, repackage it. It's not the worst thing in the world. So, I mean, anyway, getting off topic, but getting on what's reality. What's real and happening right now.
Exactly. And thanks, Lisa. And Mike?
Yeah, my personal experience with manufacturing, as I told you, and Josh mentioned, like, for example, he went also to Turkey and Vietnam and Israel. I also went to Turkey. I didn't mention that before, and Thailand and Singapore and Vietnam and even some other countries, just to touch on to see what the differences are. But I find out that I was in a way fortunate because I met a lot of good people in China that became friend and my translator and my manager. And I find out, to be honest with you, China was the best place for me to manufacture and the easiest route. However, people should know, just from distance, trying to do something in China most likely will not succeed. and it will not be exactly what you want because you're not there, you're not hands-on, and you don't understand basically Chinese culture and how to deal with them. I had some experience before from manufacturing jewelry, and I kind of understood their culture, their thinking, and how to approach them to get the most out of what I want, and how to manufacture a product. And to be honest with you, everything I do right now is in China. My employees are in China, my office is in China, my warehouse is in China, my factory is in China. I even ship my product directly from China to the customer in US within 3 days. So I have very fast shipping. I don't have any issues as far as delayed shipping by boat or anything like that, because I set it up from beginning, everything from China and with FedEx, and I have a VIP contract with FedEx that my products get shipped from my warehouse in China to the customer within 3 days. So that has worked out for me. So maybe it's not for everyone, but for me, the best place is still China. And I'm working on other products, by the way.
I have to interrupt you. Well, Michael, that's because you're there. You're controlling
Absolutely.
your environment.
Absolutely.
If everybody was fortunate enough to go to and control their environment and make sure they have their everything from concept to fruition there, I mean, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would be doing exactly the same thing.
Right.
Absolutely, you're right. And I did mention that I was fortunate enough that I did manufacturing there before. I knew the culture, I had the people, and I was able to go to China, stay there, and finish my product before my wife kills me. But
that's good. That's good. My wife did kill me. Michael, with your product, with your shipping, it suggests that you have a premium product and you could afford the margins on it, because the kind of shipping that you're talking about, FedEx, is costly. And when it comes down to
very costly, it's a big box. Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a per unit cost that is passed on to the customer. By the way,
they raised the prices within 2 years 5 times on me.
Whoa. Well, you know what? You're fortunate you have that kind of product with a demand audience that they can't find it anywhere else. They have to buy your product. It's a unique product. Yeah. That's good. That is good. Let's just talk a little bit about Chinese culture, which is a unique set of circumstances. And I think anybody who's been there has some sort of an opinion or some sort of an understanding of what's going on there. And I'll start. I've been in China for quite a number of years. It always fascinates me. First of all, there's this obsession with the West, especially with American culture, and the kids are always wearing logo shirts and sneakers. But there's a very principled way for them to process stuff, which is one of the reasons of being there with your product becomes very important. Everything is very linear there. It's A to B, B to C, C to D, on and on. If you're asking them to go from A to E, skip everything in, let's just proof of concept, go to A to E, it looks like their head's about to spin off. It's not something culturally that they appreciate in terms of doing things out of lockstep. So being there and looking over their shoulder and saying, no, do it this way, not that way, does get you the kind of product that you want, not the product that they're expecting, meaning the factory's demanding. And it allows you to be more impulsive as you see things developing. If there's an issue, you could change it, but the factory won't necessarily do that. So, a strategy of being there, although, are you there now, Michael?
In China, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been able to go. as soon as I opened my place and I had everything
Again,
set up, I
COVID.
told everyone I'll be back in 2 weeks. It's been over 2.5 years.
They're still waiting for you.
They're still waiting for you.
Right, I know that.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and you said the same thing to your wife too, you know? No, so I haven't been to China since the beginning of COVID, a little bit even before that. And everything that I hear about it right now, it's not great in terms of doing things, but it's good that you have people there to do it. But to Michael's point, if you're there, you could direct the product and you could you direct the way you want it, which is critical for making it successful and a quicker product to bring to market.
Yeah, you need to be there. And even if you're there and you don't understand the culture and you don't know how to communicate with them, you're gonna run into problems. I give you one quick example. I had a friend who used to bring jewelry boxes, buy it in the US and sell it to the jewelers. He decided to go to China and
With the
make
packaging,
the
you mean? The
Yes.
packaging?
It's
Yes.
just a jewelry box that you put the
Yeah.
ring inside or whatever. So I told him that it's very hard to do. So no, I know how to do that. So he went over there, he took the sample, he gave it to them, they made the sample, he went back, he checked it, he came here, they asked for the money, he sent all the money, he went there again, he saw the product being put in the boxes and everything, so he was completely satisfied. He came back, when he received the merchandise here, it wasn't what he checked over there.
Of
So
course.
one of the things I had to make my factory to understand from beginning, and believe me, it wasn't hard, even though they're doing business for many years, that it's to their interest to take care of me and give me good products, not just to make a one-time deal for $1 million and then, oh, I got this order. And it was so hard for me that I had to drill this thing into their head maybe 100 times through my translator. Listen, it's in your interest to make a good product and take care of things. Don't cheat. Don't say you're going to give me this material and change it to a cheaper one because you're going to make more money one time. So basically, I was able to make them understand this is what you need to do, but it's not so easy.
No. You know, it might be worth just talking about, because everybody is concerned about getting knocked off in China. Yes. You know, you have a product, and you know, I'll be the first to admit I've been knocked off a few times in China, and I've had a factory steal my tooling, and you know, a few years later, 3 years later, some distributor in Chicago was distributing my product. It stepped down with less technology, but my design, my trademark, and that happens quite often. Part of the problem is in China is that the penalties. I hope I'm not going off the rails here, James.
You're not. You're actually making my job a lot easier.
I live for that.
I mean,
but the laws, the IP laws in China are ridiculous. So, example, for this factory that stole my tooling, the intellectual property laws are administered on a local level, on a local basis. So it's not necessarily a national court, but it is the local court in this town, Dongguan, let's say. It just so happened that the factory that I was dealing with, the guy was kind of a shady guy. And one of my agents put me in there. And this guy also had a couple of other businesses, like I got a hotel and a man's pleasure house, otherwise known as a hoe house. You know, so he so the chances of my prosecuting successfully against this guy in this town were very, very low. It would have cost me probably $200,000. And even in the event that he's found to be guilty, he was still in possession of my tooling, which he could have destroyed. And the penalty is a few $100s from the government. So what's keeping, I learned a lot of times the best way to protect yourself in China is to develop a product that doesn't provide somebody else a high margin to copy it, and that they don't have the distribution network in the West to be able to distribute it broadly. So inexpensive and broadly distributed. Not that they don't try, but you always have to be careful and mindful, and you have to check some of the marketplaces to make sure that that somebody hasn't knocked you off. And you have to monitor, and frankly, I'm a great believer, it's a waste of time to pursue the Chinese factories or the agents.
I'm so sorry. I have to say something before I forget. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John.
No, go ahead, Lisa.
So when it comes to all of this, manufacturing, getting your product done, the worst thing you could do is delay and wait and wait and wait. Start branding your product immediately. Go to the Gearharts, get your trademark, get all of these things done, get your branding done, and be the first one on the market.
Absolutely.
The first one out there.
And document it, and document everything.
And document it. It's the whole going back and forth, and I hate to interrupt you, but it's true. Like, that's the thing. Trademark it, brand it. You talk about Facebook. You know the F in Facebook. You know the camera on Instagram. Get your product branded quickly. Get it out on the market. Let everybody knows what it is, and be the first. Be the first one out there. And even if they copy, this happens all the time. It happens it happened with the NutriBullet. It happens with those cool strainers that are out there. Get your product branded, get it out there, and be the first to do it.
And the other thing is, Chinese manufacturers would not be doing this unless they had partners, collaborators in the United States who are willing to take their product, the knockoff product, and distribute it. So in effect, the branded goods establish the high watermark and the price point and the marketing. The knockoff would just ride on that in markets like Amazon or someplace, or other markets, catalogs, wherever. And it would be very confusing to the consumer, even with a different name, different brand. So if you are going to sue somebody, don't bother with the Chinese. Go after the US-based distributor. And at least you have a well to go to. You have somebody to pursue, and they're subject to US law. So nothing scares her more than to have customs take a look at every one of their imports. And for knockoffs, for brand, for trademark violations and IP violations.
Right, and
I have to say something.
Josh, oh, sorry, Mike. I was just going to say, no, as Josh was saying, in terms of making sure you have, your US IP, the trademarks, the patents, and those sorts of things, in order to go after those US counterparts, right, is really key. One of the things that you always think about in terms of obtaining IP protection is, one, how valuable is it going to be for you to obtain it? And then two, how are you going to enforce it, right? And at the end of the day, if you're in the US and you need to enforce something against someone in the US or someone in China, odds are your option is better to, be able to do it, in the US. So that's just, a point that I wanted to echo on Josh's end. But sorry, Mike, go on.
No, it's okay. I just want to add something to that. Since I've been, just like Josh, in China many years, in the past, even if you had a patent in the US or other places, Chinese absolutely didn't care whatsoever. However, lately, before COVID, when I was there, and even after, I will give you an example, they're starting to enforce more and more, and they're becoming a little bit scared of copying things that are patented. Unfortunate, as not only I have a patent in the US, but with David's help, I have also a patent in China for my product, amongst other countries. So I know two manufacturers that I worked with before. They wanted to take my product into their own Chinese market. And they even told me like it's nothing wrong. And once I said I have a patent, I also have a patent in China, actually so far, they have stopped. I don't know what's going to happen in the future or whatever. So it has changed somewhat compared to many years ago. But what Josh is saying true, because it's in their blood. Like when I tell them, you know, you cannot copy that, they're like, what do you mean you cannot copy that? It's so normal to them
It
to
is
take
very normal.
something and just go with it.
You know, Michael, to that point, the more successful the product, you know, the effort that you put out in terms of marketing and marketing dollars and effort, the more attractive it is for them to knock it off.
Absolutely.
They do not want to go after a dead product that
They're
is
smart.
not successful.
They're really smart the way they do
Well,
things.
they're smart in terms of being goddess, as we say, but that, you know, they are, you know, you just have to be cautious. Everybody has a strategy. My strategy is make it quick, make it cheap, and distribute broadly. There is no incentive for them to knock this off, although they've tried, because it's so low cost, and I engineered it to be low cost. But if something has a high margin, there's room between what you're buying it for, their knockoff, you're selling it for over here. There's a lot of range in there for them to be profitable.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you understand that. So you're in the jewelry industry, so you understand that.
By the way, I met you in your house. I don't know if you remember me or not.
I don't know. You know, there's a lot of people who come in and out of my house. That was pre-COVID. You know, I've changed the door. I've changed the lock. Like, I think I might probably did.
You know, the product was Lufoliate. That was another product that I brought before the shoes, and your wife was trying to help me with the marketing.
Yeah, she helps other. She never helps me. She helps.
Oh, okay. It's for cleaning your back in the shower.
Of course.
Okay,
yes, I remember that. And you put it on the wall.
Yes. That was a product I brought to the market before the shoes.
It's always nice to see a Persian. An Armenian.
Was it the loofah mitt? Was it the loofah mitt?
Yes. It's called
I
Lufoliate.
remember that.
Yeah, no, I remember. We put an addition onto the house. Come back.
Okay.
Visit again. What else? Any other questions, James?
Well, I think maybe one last one. We are getting close to kind of wanting to wind down, but you know, Michael mentioned earlier about his deal with FedEx, and you know, part of the challenge is finding the right people to make it, and then the other part is getting it over here, right? Getting it to your warehouse or getting it directly to the customers. And you know, to just speak a little bit, each of you, on the current climate in that respect, the supply chain issues, whether it's due to COVID or what have you, and the increased cost with it. I've spoken to numerous people who've told me that shipping containers that were going for a few thousand are now 20,000, right? How is that affecting the business? And it's taking, instead of weeks, it's taking months for the product to get here. So how can you unless you're Michael, who has the high margin premium product, right, that's able to utilize FedEx direct to customers, what do you do and how do you do it in order to keep the customers satisfied and coming back? And Lisa, maybe we can start with you, and then once we get through this, if there's any questions from the attendees here, maybe we can touch on those. So
yeah, sure. I have compared prices from shipping to air. And recently I had many of my products very, very lightweight, much like yours, Josh, very, very lightweight, very small product. I had one of my products, several of them shipped by air as opposed to freight on board a boat. And it's still a very, very challenging time. I had some products being shipped. I got pricing 2 years ago, same product, $3,200 to ship on the water. It went up by $15,000. My client literally paid $20,000 to have freight shipped on the water. So doing your comparisons Don't just settle for one shipping method. Check out everybody. Don't leave it up to the manufacturer to do your door-to-door. You have to get in touch with a specialty customs communicator business, and we could talk about that all night long too. But it's important to do your comparisons. Don't just settle for one specific shipping. You may be using FedEx, perhaps DHL is better. And they're in a war also. They want your business. Whatever shipping company it is wants your business. So I would say check out air freight, not just by water. And again, I have to go into, again, Josh, we talked about producing something overseas, and don't take your time to do anything. Do it fast. Get things out quickly, and just stay on top of everything. So in terms of shipping, do your comparisons. Compare every single aspect of shipping there is before making that final decision.
Yeah, Mike, Josh, you want to jump in? I know, Mike, you already touched a little bit about your FedEx deal.
Yeah, the shipping, because I was shipping before my shoes, other product, I went through so many. And even with my Ziba shoes, I have checked every known shipping company that I could find out. And I told them what I have with FedEx. Nobody so far has been able to beat that, again, only because I ship sometimes 1,000 packages a day. So I have a very high volume shipping, and the rate that I've gotten from them, even though it has risen 5 times, as I said, in 2 years, so it has more than doubled. But still, this is the best option I have. And if I want to bring with containers and think about, okay, how many months I need to wait? What are the costs of freight right now? The cost of custom and imports. And I need a place here for the warehouse, all the employees that I need to hire here to take care of them, the quality, and ship them. It worked the best for me overseas and with FedEx so far, but it may not be for everyone.
Yeah. With our products, and I've been shipping for a while, and there is, by the way, and Michael hit upon customs, and there is an advantage to manufacturing outside of China. The tariff fees coming out of China had increased substantially, and it was at one point 20% or so, and depended on the class of goods. Customs tariffs are classified by the type of goods you're bringing in. There's a long list of product classifications that you could find online. If you did a search on tariffs and classifications, it boils down to, glass that's beveled, that is this size. If it's bigger than that size, it's a different tariff class. And the reason that US Customs does that is to somewhat protect US-based industries, meaning that if a US-based industry can manufacture something, imported goods have to pay a higher tariff to come into the United States. So that's a consideration. Fortunately, our tariff rate actually went down when we moved to Vietnam. I bring in not quite 40s, but either multiple pallets or a 40 or a 20-foot container, a smaller container of goods. Unlike most products, my product is more akin to fresh milk than it is to a product, because it has over here, and I don't know if you could see it, but it says replace by date. It says replaced by 11/20/23. The reason is that part of the patent has a battery inside of this. A battery is buried in there at the time of manufacturing, and the battery is good for 4 years, but we encourage people to change it every 3 years. So because of that, the product has to be quote unquote fresh. So we are manufacturing all the time. Maybe for this product line, there's 4 different products. There might be 7 different pack outs that the factory does. There might be some private labeling. So we are always manufacturing and we're always shipping. Over the last few months, the time frame from Vietnam to Port Newark and well, we ship to either Port Newark or to Long Beach. If we're bringing in pallets that are going somewhere to the West Coast or the Midwest, where we're bringing in product for a B2B customer, used to take 3.5 to 4 weeks to arrive between Vietnam to Long Beach. Now it's anybody's guess. Last time it was like 2 months, 9 weeks. Coming into Port Newark, the best I've done so far has been 3 months, when it used to be 5 weeks. So does it create a problem? Well, yeah, because what you're always doing is you're planning on replenishment of inventory. And this is something for consideration while you're planning in terms of how you're marketing and how you're selling the product. There's always kind of a wild card because all of a sudden a customer out of left field comes in and orders, 20,000 units, but you have 10,000 units in-house that you could ship. So you have to kind of work out a strategy as to how to do that. Before, when it only took 5 weeks, it was simple. You'd tell them, well, we're expecting a shipment in 3 weeks. Hold on 3 weeks, we'll ship you the whole shipment. But now supply chain has really created problems for myself and for accounts. And some of these accounts resell their B2B resellers, like we sell a lot to the plumbing industry, to people like that. So they sell it on to, large plumbing companies. So we have to factor that in. I get a sense that the supply chain issue is starting to resolve itself. Not completely, but instead of 3 months, maybe it'll go down to 2 months or 9 weeks. It'd still be better than 3 months. But you have to calculate that in. As far as costs gone up. And since our product is low cost, we add maybe 7 cents onto a shipment or onto a sale, and we recoup that additional few $1,000s in cost because we get in 30,000 units, so at a time. So it's challenging, and our customers understand that all prices have gone up. Everything's gone up. And I just fielded a call from a supply house on the West Coast. I stepped away for a moment, and they're looking for a large shipment as well. So here's another one, but we'll ignore it for now. But you have to be nimble, and it really depends on how you run your business. If you're doing the product development, the invention, the manufacturing, as well as the importing, are you doing the distribution? Question, is that something that you have the wherewithal and the patience to do, as well as to invoice and collect and finance everything? It's a lot of work, but it might be worth it. Or, I know Lisa said QVC and Home Shopping Network. Well, I used to do business with as well. It's relatively easy bringing in a couple of pallets to them and not have to deal with all the other things with that. You're just bringing in the pallets, and quite often they help with that. So
don't simplify that, Josh.
No, it's not simple. It's not simple. And I love going out to Pennsylvania to visit them, at QVC. But it is a challenge. Everything is a challenge. There's nothing simple about this. because frankly, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right?
Right.
You have to be up for the challenge. You definitely have to be up for the challenge, but it's a good thing. If you have passion for what your product is, you can do it. You can do it. Stick with it and you'll be okay. There's
Yeah.
hurdles, right?
Yeah, it does. It does
Such is
pay.
life.
Yeah.
Such is life.
Okay.
Any questions at all? James, are we at the questions?
Yeah.
part?
Well, Josh, thank you. We have moved on to the questions now, Josh.
Okay, James, what are you here for?
Again, mind reading.
Okay.
No,
Well,
yeah, no,
I just
absolutely. I
wanna-
think we can jump into a few questions. We have just a little bit of time perhaps. And anyone who has a question, you have your reactions and the raise hand feature down in the toolbar. You can use that. We can unmute you. We can have you ask a question, and we'll see what we can do for there.
Well, I'm just going to butt in, so that's my technique.
Okay, well, first,
Yeah,
And
sure.
I want to apologize to everybody. I'm off brand today, so I'm sort of taking a hybrid vacation day and a work day. So I'm not wearing my suit. So those of you who see me frequently on Zoom will appreciate now that I do have real person clothes as well. So I just wanted to make that point. But really quickly, and then I'll shut up. I just want to say, well, first of all, thanks for Michael, Lisa, and Josh for volunteering their wisdom. But the advantage of working with people who have this kinds of knowledge is that you avoid the mistakes that they may have made, and speed to market and speed to getting your product out there is everything. And it is a complicated route. And so I encourage everyone to, go forward and find people who can support you in your project. So we worked with Lisa and Josh, and they're fantastic, and Michael's fantastic. So, by all means, seek them out. So that's all I'm going to say. And I'll turn it back over to you, James, for questions. So
no worries, appreciate it. And I see we have one question here. It looks like Odie, perhaps, and tell me if I spoke wrong. But
yes, you did. You did it right. Don't worry.
Awesome.
Great stuff. A bit of a sort of background. I'll be really quick. Based in the UK, but we moved our manufacturing to Singapore. Actually, we do basically a botanical fruit juice with a very long shelf life. So we're looking to launch the Amazon hopefully this month. But our issue now is working with beverage distributors. As a result of the Singaporean manufacturers, they only focus on making the product. They don't focus on logistics whatsoever. So we're starting here in the UK market. That's the first question. Does anyone know any sort of not FedEx, any sort of a chilled global logistics company that would work for a company of our size? Secondly, we're also looking at the US market and transporting products from Singapore to the US. It's just not workable. So I'm considering working with manufacturers in Mexico. I've been making that sort of negotiation, should I say, being made right now. But I'm not too sure about how that would work as for a finished product coming over the border from Mexico into America. So I needed some advice on that, basically. Thanks.
Thanks. It's a multifaceted question, but anyone, Michael, Josh, Lisa, if you want to jump in, feel free.
Yes, I actually have some food products that I'm bringing to QVC from Mexico. I can connect you with one of the manufacturers that I use direct. I can direct you to them, give you their specific information. And they had the challenges. But we're doing it. In fact, they're airing sometime in September. And they're shipping directly from Mexico via Florida and directly to QVC. So I'd love to get your information, put it in the chat, or email me, info@inventingatoz.com. Certainly can help you with that part of it. And love to even see what your product is. Maybe get you on QVC as well if you have that interest.
Okay. Amazing. Thanks, Lisa. Sorry, could you repeat your email address, if that's okay?
It's info, INFO, at inventingatoz.com. TOZ.com.
And in closing, I guess join us for our next rendition of the ESS. It is on May 28th, May 26th at 12 p.m. It's related to global business and IP strategies, both for Canada and Europe. So we're kind of bringing everything together and touching on different parts of, protecting a product, bringing it to market, getting it made, etc. So thank you again so much. Lisa, Josh, Mike, we are all in your debt, and hopefully everyone else learned as much as I did today. Thanks, guys.